Hello, my name is Hyung Park. Today I'm going to start recording my doctoral studies journey to share with my learning journey to encourage more lifelong learners to pursue doctoral studies because of well-being of learners and the prosperity of society. Last week I read articles and a chapter about multiple topics, including various languages, according to our learning schedule. For me, as an educator as well as a lifelong learner, I, ref- I reflected on how I am doing well as an active learner, online learning environment. These are key wording of last week. Visualization supported me in organizing what I learned last week. That's why I just created this word cloud. I created cyclical phrases for meaningful discussion to respond to the given questions from our learning schedule because without this kind of the thinking ways, I can wonder how can I answer the questions. So more meaningful discussion and a more effective respond to the questions. So I thought first phase is specific and direct context questions should be provided. And then we can provide relevant and direct response. And then we can have meaningful discussions. This is the cyclical phases. That's why as long as we need to continue to our discussion, so using this kind of the phases, we can have meaningful, productive, intelligent discussions. That's why I created these cyclical phases for meaningful discussions. Conrad and Offner 2018 chapter, they provided the perceived purpose of educational attainment has narrowed to serving society through economic development. This kind of the quote they inputted, but actually they value that students the work submit for assessment is the most important indicators of the quality uh, of educational outcomes. For response purpose, I adopt definition of education, John Dewey's social continuity of life and growth. And I used Gary Becker's definition of a training, a human capital investment that raises the worker's productivity. The first question is, Conrad and Opner bring up one of the educational debate of the goals of education when they state that educational goals have narrowed to serving society, economic development. This focus suggests that students come into play potential bearers of skills producing economic value rather than as human beings their own right. How does this focus affect the language used in online education in the era or education? Because within the gap between education training, is there a gap? I responded to this question. This narrow focus language leads to highlighting the academic purpose of universities teaching a broad range of topics, as well as fostering critical thinking, intellectual growth, and personal development. But disparaging training as one of the outcomes of universities. This narrow focus language creates a gap and widens the gap between education and training. This is not part of the question from the given our reading material, but I raised my own question. How can we address this gap? My response is there's no simple way to address the gap under a different lens. We need to strategy to bridge the gap. To address the gap, having a consensus on the specific scope and context of this narrow focus, viewing issues from multiple perspectives, and considering lifelong learning as education. And another question is, does this result in quality assurance issue? Generally speaking, yes, it does. Definition of quality assurance is a system or an instrument to measure the quality with the aim of improving it. Types of quality assurance are accreditation, assessment, and audit. The question of quality assurance is subject to broad debate. So it is too bulky and heavy to mention it at this time. And I want to talk about the actual practical example, how education and training occurs at the same time. Training and education and training for me as complementary. Education is ongoing learning process. Training is productive activity in the workplace. I took paid specialization education pathway provided by our regulatory body, my profession, the College of Immigration and Citizenship Consultants. This course is the 5 months, and we have assignments and presentations and final 4 hours, 190 multiple choice questions. It's very grueling, the final passage to get the license. The outcome is the additional accreditation, our highest level of license. This course aims to provide quality service to the public and clients. This online program is not only education and but also training, because it's part of the lifelong learning, and we trained to represent clients before the Immigration and Refugee Board of Canada. So that's why I gave this practical example. And another the buzzing word is training is pouring in, education is drawing out. So if we use this terminology and languages, what will happen? We cannot educate nor train at the same time. We do not educate nor train at the same time. Because pouring in, drawing out, they are contradiction. This dichotomy triggers philosophical and pedagogical differences in approach. Language deepens these differences. Training in pouring in, education in drawing out. So learner and focus are different. So under the training, learner is participant or trainee, and the training focus on passive intake of knowledge or skills. But education sees learners as a student or scholar, and then focus is active role in seeking knowledge and understanding. Another notions highlighted, Curie, Rosenblit, and Cross outline the underlying assumption is the role of teachers in an e-learning environment should be reduced from sage on the stage to guide on the side. Can educators adapt to this change? Andragogy, when they themselves have been trained a certain way, can we adapt and change it at the speed required for our learners? Actually, sage on the stage and guide the slide. They are just the sitting on the spectrum. Even though e-learning environment is kind of the MOOCs, right? So like a Coursera and Udemy, the teacher-centered still sage on the stage is effective. And guide on the side, learner-centered, also very the powerful, popular approach nowadays. So I believe a sage on the stage and the guide on the side, this kind of a rule is just difference. So this notion highlight just only talking about the different roles of teachers. Can educators adapt to these changes in andragogy when they themselves have been trained a certain way? Personally, I can say yes. But the speed, so nowadays the era of artificial intelligence and the big data. So maybe depending on the cases, conditions, but anyway, if we try, we can adapt this kind of a speed. But as I have already mentioned, the role of teachers, depending on the cases, depending on the situations, can be moved to from the left and right along with the spectrum. This is my response this week. And then when I prepare for or when I have another report, I will come back to this video recording. Thank you so much.